Judge Judy begins by questioning Ms. Coates about her work and whether she had regular clients. Coates explains that she cleaned houses and had clients she returned to every week. Judge Judy then presents a simple hypothetical. If she cleaned someone's home for an entire day and the client refused to pay, would she return the following week? Coates says she probably would, especially if she trusted the person. Judge Judy keeps pushing the scenario further, asking what she would do if the client failed to pay again and again. Coates continues explaining that it would depend on the relationship and how much she trusted the person. That answer becomes important because Judge Judy quickly connects it to the actual dispute. Ms. Coates had been living in Mr. Velasquez's home for years, but according to the evidence, she had fallen behind on her rent. Judge Judy asks the landlord a very direct question. While Coates was living in his property, was she always completely current with her rent? At first, Mr. Velasquez gives a hesitant answer and starts explaining the circumstances instead of answering directly. Judge Judy immediately stops him and tells him that she asked a very simple question. Eventually, he admits that Coates was not always current on her rent. Judge Judy makes her position crystal clear. In her view, rent is payment for a product, the product being a place to live. She compares it to going into a restaurant, eating an expensive meal, and then refusing to pay the bill. She argues that although there may be complicated legal procedures surrounding evictions, the basic principle remains straightforward. If someone is living in a property, they are expected to pay for it. Judge Judy becomes particularly critical of what she sees as a pattern of delayed payments and excuses. Coates tries to explain that she was not simply 60 days behind without making any payments. She says she had an older balance of around $600 and had been gradually paying it down. She claims she had recently given Velasquez another $200 and was continuing to make payments. But Judge Judy is not interested in turning the hearing into a long discussion about every individual payment. She wants to establish the basic amount that remained unpaid, and she repeatedly brings the conversation back to the central question. The case then shifts to Coates' security deposit. She claims that Velasquez failed to return the money she had paid when she moved into the property. Coates produces the rental agreement and a receipt showing that a security deposit had been paid. The amount becomes a point of confusion because there were multiple people listed on the lease. Velasquez argues that the deposit should be divided among the people who were supposed to live there, while Coates insists that she personally paid half of it. Judge Judy starts breaking down the situation one person at a time. There were 4 names associated with the lease: Coates, her daughter, another individual, and Coates' boyfriend. Coates explains that her daughter was a minor and did not contribute money toward the deposit. She also says her boyfriend never actually moved into the property because he passed away before doing so. According to Coates, that left only herself and another tenant actually contributing money to the deposit. Judge Judy then turns directly to Velasquez and asks whether he has any evidence that Coates' daughter paid any portion of the security deposit. He does not. She asks whether he has proof that the deceased boyfriend contributed money. Again, he has nothing. Then Judge Judy asks another tenant whether he personally paid half of the deposit. He confirms that he did. She asks whether Coates also paid half, and he agrees. With that issue settled, Judge Judy makes another important observation. Velasquez never returned any portion of the security deposit to anyone. That becomes a major problem for the landlord. Velasquez argues that Coates still owed rent and that the unpaid balance should be deducted from the deposit. Judge Judy agrees that unpaid rent can matter, but she wants to know exactly how much Coates owed. Coates' monthly share of the rent was established at $300. Based on the information presented, Judge Judy calculates that Coates was approximately 2 months behind, but the landlord claims the actual balance was higher because previous unpaid amounts had been carried forward. Velasquez says Coates had accumulated a balance of around $830. He attempts to explain that the amount had grown over several months because she would make partial payments rather than paying the full amount due. He gives Judge Judy a breakdown showing that Coates owed several $100s, then made a $200 payment that reduced the balance. Additional rent was then added to the account. Judge Judy examines his paperwork carefully, trying to determine which charges actually belong to the period relevant to the case. The landlord also claims Coates was no longer living at the property during part of the period for which he was demanding rent, but Coates insists that she was still living there. Judge Judy weighs the conflicting statements and eventually determines that the amount owed in rent should be deducted from the security deposit. After doing the math, She concludes that the landlord still owes Coates approximately $550 from the deposit. But that is only the beginning of the dispute. Coates then claims that Velasquez and other people entered her room without permission and damaged or removed her belongings. She says someone climbed through a window because the door could not be opened and that her possessions were then thrown into boxes rather than being carefully packed. According to Coates, numerous items were damaged, while others disappeared completely. Coates insists that climbing through the window was still an improper entry into her private room, but Judge Judy remains focused on the unpaid rent and the landlord's ownership of the property. Coates then begins listing the property she says was damaged or lost. She mentions jewelry, including a Tiffany bracelet and another turquoise bracelet that she says was worth hundreds of dollars. She also claims that a Prada purse was missing. Judge Judy asks an important question: did Coates have renter's insurance? Coates admits that she did not. That answer creates another obstacle for her claim. Judge Judy explains that without stronger evidence, she cannot simply decide that the landlord or his family stole expensive personal belongings. Coates may believe the items disappeared, but proving that someone actually took them is a completely different matter. Judge Judy makes it clear that accusations alone are not enough to establish liability. The plaintiff then turns to the things she says were physically damaged. She identifies a television and an antique vanity as two of the most valuable damaged possessions. Judge Judy asks to see photographs of both items. Coates produces pictures of pieces of the furniture and what appears to be part of the television, but Judge Judy wants clear evidence showing the condition of the property and what happened to it. Coates explains that after her belongings were removed from the room, they were placed into a truck and eventually delivered to another location where she was staying. She claims the items arrived in poor condition, with things thrown together and jewelry scattered throughout the boxes. She says this was evidence that her possessions had not been handled with care. Judge Judy examines the photographs and notices that some of the alleged damage may not be as serious as Coates suggests. One piece appears to be something that could simply be reattached or repaired. Velasquez argues that he and the others had carefully documented the condition of the room before touching anything. He says they took photographs because they believed Coates had abandoned the property. The pictures are presented to Judge Judy as evidence that the room appeared cluttered and that the occupants had reason to believe Coates was no longer living there. Coates strongly disputes that interpretation. She says the photographs do not prove that she had abandoned the room. Judge Judy studies the images and notices something that, in her opinion, supports Coates's claim that she had still been living there. The room may have been messy, but Judge Judy points out that Coates's shoes were organized together rather than scattered around the room. That detail suggests to Judge Judy that the room was still being used. The courtroom then returns to the central issue, the unpaid rent. Judge Judy delivers one of her trademark blunt observations. She tells Coates that this is what can happen when someone repeatedly falls behind on rent. If you live somewhere without keeping up with your payments, eventually the landlord is going to take action. Judge Judy acknowledges that there may be legal rules governing exactly how a landlord handles a tenant's belongings, but she focuses on the practical reality of the situation. At the same time, Judge Judy does not completely excuse Velasquez's conduct. She points out that Coates had lived there for approximately 5 years and had paid him a substantial amount of money over that period. She believes he could have shown more patience and handled her belongings more carefully. In her view, even if Coates failed to prioritize her rent payments, that does not automatically give the landlord permission to treat her property carelessly. Judge Judy ultimately reaches a compromise between the two sides. She calculates the remaining amount and determines that Coates should receive money back. At the same time, she rejects the much larger claims involving allegedly stolen jewelry, expensive handbags, and other missing belongings because the evidence does not establish who took them or whether they were actually stolen. As for the damaged television, Judge Judy takes a practical approach. She questions how much the older television was really worth and suggests that replacing it would not require the enormous amount of money Coates seems to be claiming. After considering everything presented in court, Judge Judy awards the plaintiff $650. The decision brings the long dispute to an end. Coates does not receive compensation for every item she claimed was damaged or missing, and Velasquez does not keep the entire security deposit. Instead, Judge Judy finds a middle ground based on the evidence she considers reliable. The message from the courtroom is straightforward: unpaid rent can seriously weaken a tenant's position, but landlords still have responsibilities when dealing with a tenant's property. In the end, Judge Judy rules for the plaintiff in the amount of $650, declares the matter finished, and sends both parties out of the courtroom.